Good afternoon, distinguished guests, dignitaries, and esteemed participants. I am Sudhir Singh, Section Officer in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, and on behalf of the Ministry, I am privileged and honored to welcome you all to the 18th Urban Mobility India Conference cum Exhibition 2025. This roundtable session is on urban transit-enabled economic development. The session is being graciously chaired by Mr. Shalabh Goel, Managing Director, NCRTC. He is an IRSEE officer of 1989 batch from Indian Railways. He is presently leading transformation in regional mobility as the Managing Director of NCRTC, which is mandated for designing, developing, implementing, financing, operating and maintaining Namo Bharat RRTS project in National Capital Region of India. Along with co-chairperson Professor Sanjay Gupta, he is presently serving as head of the Department of Transport Planning at School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. He has nearly 39 years of experience at SPA Delhi, including 34 years as full-time faculty in the field of urban and regional transport. Guiding the discussion as the moderator is Ms. Radha from WRI India. With over 2 decades, sorry. To begin the session, I am honored to request the moderator to graciously guide the proceedings of the session. Thank you.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining our session today. I'd like to start off by briefly introducing WRI India and our distinguished panel for the roundtable discussion here today. So WRI India works to improve people's lives, protect and restore nature, and address climate change. As an independent research organization, we leverage data and expertise to catalyze change across systems like food, land, water, energy, and cities. Over the past decade and more, WRI India has been contributing to the discourse and uptake of TOD in Indian cities through plans and policy advisory, demonstration projects, knowledge sharing, and capacity building initiatives. Just a brief introduction to our esteemed panelists here for the roundtable discussion today. Could I have the speaker bios presentation up, please? Okay. Yeah, session chairperson, as already introduced, is Mr. Shalabh Goel, who is a IRSEE officer from the Indian Railways, presently leading managing director of NCRTC. He has decades of experience in the mass transportation field, and his career and has seen significant roles and contributions across several railways departments and as well as DMRC. And welcome, sir. I'll move on to welcome Mr. Loknath Behra, who is currently the Managing Director of KMRL and has in the past held roles with the police department at the state level in Kerala as well as Kochi. He is known as the father of police modernization in Kerala. He's an expert in legal, administrative, investigative, and technology matters, and was instrumental in the opening and sort of launch of the unique Kochi Water Metro project. We are still awaiting Mr. Rajiv Dhankar, but he is the Director of Planning, of Projects and Planning at DMRC, and brings 3 decades of experience in projects planning and execution at numerous key positions. Professor Dr. Sanjay Gupta, who is the Head of Transport Planning Department at the School of Planning and Architecture. He also has over 4 decades of academic research and professional experience, specializing in various areas related to transport policy, planning, public transport, freight logistics, and demand modeling. He has held positions as honorary secretary and member in several esteemed organizations and committees, and is a widely published author and with several consultancy and research assignments to his name. Professor Shivanand Swami, as we speak. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Professor Shivanand Swamy is the Director Emeritus at the Center of Excellence for Urban Transport at CEPT. He's an economist and urban regional planner with deep experience in transport systems, integrated land use transport planning, and development management. He's been a professor at CEPT and also served as a policy and systems advisor for governments at various levels. He's supported the development and planning of BRTS projects in multiple cities and advises Government of India on scaling up bus-based systems and currently electric public mobility in India. Welcome, sir. We have Ms. Usha Rao, who is a climate and urban resilience expert with deep experience in the Asia-Pacific region. She's led strategic initiatives on energy-efficient urban systems, climate adaptation, and supported several development agencies. And she's also played a key role in conceptualizing the Kochi Water Metro and the Nagpur Rail Metro, which were projects of KFW. Welcome, ma'am. And we also have with us Mr. Rahul Yadav, who's currently the Deputy Chief Operations Strategy and Planning at DMRC. He's an officer with the Indian Railway Traffic Service, and his expertise lies in driverless train operations, AI-based automation projects, urban freight, cybersecurity programs with the Delhi Metro. He's held roles with the Indian Railways and also has experience with the fintech sector, international experience with the fintech sector. Welcome, sir. I think, so we will start off with a context-setting presentation. And the presentation actually, yes, sir.
The message for us is that we need to finish by 2:45 because 3:45, sorry. Because CM Haryana is coming.
Okay.
4 o'clock. So latest by 3:45 we need to finish.
By 3:45, okay. So that doesn't give us much time, and so I'm actually going to really go really fast through the presentation. What we'd like to present here today is some research that we've done in specifically in the city of Bangalore. And okay, I'm going to probably stand and it's going to go faster. As we all know, economic and urban development policies and land market conditions have been sort of pushing economic sub-centers, the creation of these economic centers further and further away in peripheral areas. And largely the consideration is road network connectivity through national highways, expressways, but public transport and other essential infrastructure has struggled to sort of keep pace with the outward sprawl. So as a result of that, resulting longer work-home commutes and greater private vehicular use has led to a lot of adverse impacts that is hampering access to jobs and labor markets, productivity and livability. The social cost of traffic congestion in Bangalore is almost 38,000 crores, which is 5% of the city's GDP. Cities, of course, have a tremendous opportunity to address these challenges because there is a lot of investment. Welcome, sir. Huge investments now happening in transit to improve mobility and accessibility across cities. 29 billion USD in metro alone. But we do know, however, that the actual ridership of metro is far lower than the projected, and that last mile connectivity is widely recognized as a critical gap. There is, of course, a national level policy and funding push, not just for adoption of TOD and MMI, not just for the financial viability of projects, but to maximize economic and quality of life gains. Studies show that public transport investments can create thousands of jobs and 4 to 7x in economic returns apart from other social and environmental benefits. There's been subnational level adoption by various cities and states in terms of TOD policies and planning regulatory frameworks. And we now know that there's also a big GOI push for TOD plans in various cities and the 1 trillion Urban Challenge Fund, other supporting economic development policies. We know that transport infrastructure is a major enabler of economic growth, but also the road transport sector is a contributor to GHG emissions and air pollution. India and several cities and states have these ambitious economic and low carbon goals, and cities and TOD are actually fundamental towards achieving this because density fuels productivity, but TOD is what helps decouple that density from congestion, from and sort of economic growth from resource use and carbon emissions. All world cities, the most competitive world cities, have done it, have got there on the back of high quality public transit, because compact public transport oriented cities are more competitive because of the accessibility and agglomeration benefits that it provides. And yeah, research also shows that when you concentrate jobs growth near transit stations, not only does it provide the highest increases in transit ridership, but also sort of fosters innovation and productivity. Some data analysis that we've done based on 2021-22 numbers, and again, this is not all jobs, certain types of jobs and certain sort of metro lines only. In Mumbai, about 18% of the population, 24% of jobs are within 1 kilometer of 3 metro lines. In Bangalore, this number is 25% and 34% respectively. Some data from world cities, and this is quite old data from 2013. We see that in Hong Kong, 75% of residents and 84% of jobs are within 1 kilometer of their metro stations or transit stations, and that's only with a 200 kilometer network. And in London and New York as well, these numbers are in excess of 50%. Peak job densities range from about 120,000 to 150,000 jobs. Hong Kong is really a standout example. Despite its differences in demography and geography, it has done this because of its sort of rail-based spatial planning. The city sort of prioritizes brownfield redevelopment over greenfield expansion. It directs where development will occur, at what densities. It also limits parking. As a result of that, it has the highest mode share of public transport amongst all world cities. And also, while GDP or gross value has increased, it has reduced fuel consumption and carbon emissions. Of course, public revenues and sort of created space for public housing and amenities are amongst the other benefits. TOD is not just an urban planning strategy, a key climate action strategy, not just from the mitigation standpoint. Today, our cities are sort of faced with increasing water, heat, and air pollution related issues, and therefore, the carrying capacity of land and infrastructure, not just to support the higher densities, but also its resilience to climate risks, becomes extremely crucial to achieve the city's goals, TOD being a key part of that. And so the discourse on TOD has really sort of evolved from decongestion, decarbonization, densification, to also and to primarily focus on accessible, livable, productive, resource efficient, and climate resilient development. And we know that sort of resource efficiency can get us to a lot of the climate action targets that cities are setting for themselves and states are setting for themselves. So, yeah, broadly in terms of what are the benefits for all stakeholders, for government, resource and economic efficiencies, local revenues, and a sort of low carbon economic growth aligned with your plans and policies. For citizens, it's citywide accessibility, productivity and workforce participation, socio-economic inclusion, and revitalized and livable neighborhoods. For businesses, again, accessibility, agglomeration benefits, enhanced catchments, lower occupancy costs and enhanced property values, business profits and growth. And similarly for developers, it's better project marketability, economies of scale, and so on and so forth. For the city overall, it's enhanced global competitiveness. Some data from our research in Bangalore, where we mapped the jobs related to registered factories and shops and commercial establishments, shows that the service sector in Bangalore actually accounts for the bulk of it. Interestingly, large enterprises, that is over 100 employees, account for only 2% of total registered enterprises, but 60% of the jobs. As you can see, the blue clusters, the manufacturing clusters, are largely on the periphery, and service establishments are all across. The peak densities in manufacturing clusters are about 25,000 jobs per square kilometer. In the city center, it's 39,000. And in the high-tech zones, it ranges from, because these are office-based sort of jobs, 58 to 108,000 jobs. When you look at the proximity of jobs to the nearest metro station, 28% of jobs are within 500 meters of the nearest metro station, 59% within 1 kilometer, and 85% within 2 kilometers. On the surface, doesn't look so bad, but because it sort of follows the radial and concentric, arterial, there are like large wedges left over, and also newer economic centers are coming further and further away where actually there is no transit connectivity. I mean, we'll come to that later. Also, we looked at, sort of the profile of last mile users. So as we can see over here, the metro is largely used by the young working class, work and education. The affluent users are still not attracted to the metro, and the low income users are priced out of it. In terms of last mile modes, walk is still the most predominant mode, and then sort of paratransit mode. Bangalore does not have a formal shared auto system, and there's a dire need for that. Almost 92% of users come by some form of NMT or public transport and shared paratransit. Bangalore has the highest, not just the highest metro fares, but also the highest cost for last mile connectivity. I think Delhi and Nagpur, which are the other two cities, doing slightly better. Willingness to pay, again, because it's, sort of most users have shifted from bus and two-wheelers, so willingness to pay is fairly low. Ideal and max wait times are actually just 5 to 10 minutes. So bus metro feeder services have actually not been successful in Bangalore because it's not been able to match that frequency. And an interesting and important finding that we found is that the catchment area is actually a function of time and not of distance. So if if you have sort of more frequent last mile services, faster feeder modes and all that, you can expand the catchment area. Quick push and pull factors for location considerations for businesses. So we all know this, sort of suitable land parcels, the right incentives and infrastructure are the key sort of pull factors. Also forward, backward market linkages and agglomeration economics. So while SEZs and all on the periphery have attracted a lot of businesses, we do know that service establishments, and we've also seen variation between manufacturing enterprises and service enterprises. Service establishments actually do like the good public transport connectivity levels, infrastructure, mixed-use neighborhoods in the city center. So that's their most desired location, although sort of land availability and all that is sort of outside. Also, the metro was not a big consideration for manufacturing enterprises because it doesn't serve their business needs, and blue-collar workers cannot afford it. They actually live around this. In terms of major challenges for businesses to locate, one is a big challenge, of course, is the right kind of land parcels, and also the existing building stock, which does not meet their requirements, grade A buildings and so on. In Bangalore, currently we do not have holistic TOD regulations, and these are not rationalized to allow this sort of development. Property values price out smaller businesses, and I mean, also in heavily commercialized areas, there's a lot of community resistance as well. And public infrastructure levels where it's not upgraded in the city center is a challenge, and then in the peripheries, it's either poor or absent. Some examples like Canary Wharf, successful examples of TOD where they've managed to bring job densities close to metro through public-private sector collaboration. They've done this by strategically identifying vacant or underutilized land parcels in well-connected areas or where transit connectivity can really be improved, and creating these high-density, mixed-use, livable business districts with state-of-the-art infrastructure and amenities in a park-like setting. So as you can see over here, very high-value jobs, high job densities, and almost 85% of the people who come to this place come by public transport, and limited parking. Very limited parking is an important point. And such catalyst projects, including Hudson Yards, they managed to sort of capture jobs growth, but also sort of spur real estate development and contribute to GDP and revenues of the city, and of course house a lot of jobs. This is a figure where it just sort of shows what is the projected revenue of that one project, and its sort of debt service, and what are the incremental revenues for the city and state from that one project. Similarly, in Seoul, they're doing this in the heart of the city, sort of utilizing train depots, rail yards, dockyards. So some major considerations for, identifying these land parcels, of course, public transport accessibility analysis, and also, like, which areas are no-go areas. These are green areas that you absolutely have to protect. Of course, market demand and potential. one quick example in Bangalore where, multiple sort of transit lines intersect. This is a PSU sort of land holding, and this is the sort of development and revenue potential, which is an extremely conservative sort of estimate. There are also campaigns in Bangalore, for example, WRI has been involved in this campaign with a focus on major employment hubs to sort of nudge commuter behavior away from personal towards public transport. So coalition building with all the stakeholders, several sort of commuter studies, outreach activities, and then sort of action plans. So several metro feeder buses were planned, and then BMTC put out a lot of this data and a live tracking app for all their metro feeder buses. Also, there's an innovation challenge where it tries to leverage behavioral science and tech-enabled solutions, again, with a focus on massive employment hubs in the city. To bridge the last mile connectivity gaps. And finally, I'll just say that, there is, since the past 3 to 4 years, there's been a ADB technical assistance project that looks at a very critical metro corridor in Bangalore, connecting all the IT and tech zones with the international airport, and of course, very comprehensive planning and regulatory frameworks and institutional frameworks. All of that has been prepared with the hope that it can inform and get incorporated into Bangalore's next master plan. Moving from a city sort of smaller scales and zooming out to the region and Delhi NCR. This is again some research that WRI did earlier. If you see in terms of traditional sectors like trade and and some manufacturing sectors like textile, leather products, certain metals, plastic, that has remained dominant. The highest job density is still within the 10-kilometer radius of Delhi NCT center, and also it completely tapers off after 40 kilometers. And the tertiary sector remains highly centralized, the job densities. About 70% of all jobs, this is data from the 6th economic census, is within 1 kilometer of the Delhi metro. There's been a push towards regional development, so we see a suburbanization of urban and economic growth. But while the job growth and employment growth has reduced in Delhi NCT, it's been captured by the other sub-regions. So there is a complementarity between sub-regions over there. This is my last slide. We recognize that transit is a key lever for economic and sustainable urban development. Some things that cities and city regions can consider is to set up the city and regional economic development corporations and cells, to sort of do the convening, foster healthy competition amongst different areas. Also the city to set aspirational goals for economic development, for climate action, for jobs and population near metro, and so on and so forth, and to be achieved through integrated economic land use transport planning and TOD sort of strategies. Also conduct spatio-economic assessments and strategize your transit network extension. So again, we see, just a small point to make over here, we see a complementarity between service enterprises or high techs and sort of clustering near the metro, whereas manufacturing enterprises may be better served by regional rail, commuter rail, bus systems, and sort of shared paratransit infrastructure, because we see a synergy and complementarity over there. I say this because in Bangalore, we're talking about extending the metro everywhere, but I think one has to strategize, what type of transit system to connect what, and then do the opposite as well. While we have now extensive transit networks, how do we also bring jobs near transit through contextual TOD plans and providing location-efficient incentives to businesses, bridging the last mile connectivity gap, of course, high quality NMT within 1 kilometer, and then high frequency, low cost feeder services beyond that, and instituting a nodal agency to coordinate all of this action. Some efforts on the government side on property databases and robust approval systems. I'll stop with that. Sorry, that went a bit long, but we will jump into the discussion right away. I would like to start with Shalabh Goel, sir. With the RRTS now, so my question is that, was a integrated spatio-economic and transit planning approach adopted while planning, we talked about strategizing the sort of transit network connections. So both ways, did it look at the economic geography of NCR? Does it sort of connect to population and employment hubs? And also the opposite, like also considering TOD, which is part of the NCR regional plan. Are there certain nodes that have been identified where commercial and industrial development can be attracted?
Thank you, Radhaji, for having me here, and I'm really thankful and privileged to be in the company of such an esteemed panel who is so much experienced. Look, when NCRTC was conceived, it came out of lot of discussions, and NCRTC, when came into being, the discussions were almost being held since 2006 onwards in different forms or the other. So NCRPB was the one who came out initially that out of a lot of discussions they came out that NCR requires now regional semi-high speed kind of connectivity, because the normal planning, how do we do the normal transport planning in the country? Say for about 20 kilometers or 40 kilometers or till the fringe of the city we can have metro network which is intra-city. But how do we connect cities which are, say, about 150 kilometers away, 200 kilometers away? So the basic concept of transport planning is that cities which are, say, around 100 kilometers, 150 kilometers, or say maximum 200 kilometers should be connected with a semi-high-speed regional rail kind of a network, that is RRTS kind of a network. And beyond 200 kilometers or so, it is Indian Railways which is going to serve, and also for the freight services. So that is the basic transportation planning. So initially 8 corridors were identified in NCR region, and out of that 3 were prioritized, one from Delhi to Modipuram, another from Delhi to Alwar initially, and third one from Delhi to Panipat. So the first corridor which is now under construction is from Delhi to Modipuram, which is almost complete. And while conceiving this corridor, why this corridor was chosen? The population, of course, was taken into account. You talked about the manufacturing hubs. Saibabad area, Modi Nagar area used to be a big manufacturing hubs at one point of time. Modi Nagar, all these were big manufacturing hubs. And Ghaziabad, Meerut, cities like Ghaziabad, Meerut, they were coming up in a very, very big way. There were commuters who wanted to come to Delhi, but there were no proper means of transportation available, and if it was available, it was taking 2 hours, 3 hours, 2.5 hours, and if it was winters, and if it was fog, then it was getting even more difficult for the commuters to come. So the Government of India, duly supported by NCRPB, Government of Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, and Mahua, of course, they came up with the idea that these corridors should be connected, and Delhi Modipuram was selected as one of the first corridors. Now, recently, Government of UP, in collaboration with NCRTC, has come out with the transit-oriented development policy. The policy existed from Mahua. The guidelines existed. The policy existed since 2017 from Mahua. But the actual shape came into being when NCRTC was set up, and Government of UP has now come out with a beautiful transit-oriented development policy, and now it is taking shape. New cities like New Meerut, Harnandipuram in Meerut area, Ghaziabad area, now they have been announced with the government, and soon they will be taking shape. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. Let me tell you 2 or 3 examples. I recently came across, in fact, OSD Mahua sent me a advertisement which I had missed, which was given by a hospital in Meerut. It said that it was basically the hospital in Meerut was trying to invite the patients in Delhi, and it had shown a Namo Bharat picture, train picture on the hospital, which caught the attention of OSD, and that is why he sent it to me. Basically, the hospital was inviting the patients of Delhi that you can have your cheaper economic treatment in Meerut using Namo Bharat train, which is going to take only 40 minutes. So this is one example which I wanted to cite. Another example was that we came, one of the startups, in fact, a female lady who approached NCRTC that she wanted to set up a co-working space at Ghaziabad. And when we asked her that what is the basic idea, she said that the co-working spaces are going to be very, very important because the new startups, they don't have enough kind of a money for setting up an office space. And if that co-working space is set up at one of the RRT stations, people from all around can come to that. They don't have to go out of the station. They can work over there. And in 200 rupees, 300 rupees, 400 rupees, the person can get a seat, maybe a table, maybe a cabin, and there are different models to that. So this is what exactly is sort of, once we talk about urban transit economic development, for me, this is urban transit economic development, the transit leading to economic development. If a patient in Meerut can come to for a treatment in Delhi, or a student living in Meerut or Ghaziabad can get admission in Delhi University and commute Delhi. So that is a perfect example of, I think, urban transit economic development, what we are talking about today. And you also talked about the SEZs. SEZs are normally, and the manufacturing hubs are normally at the fringe of the cities. They are outside. And one thing perhaps which we have missed out in the policy stage is that the transit-oriented development is no way linked with the SEZs. If we can think of sort of tweaking with the policies for the SEZs, that in case they link it with the transit, with the metro or RTS, BRTS kind of a system, some additional FAR would be given to them. Then it will be very, very beneficial. The workers who work over there, they can stay over there. They'll be linked to the main city through a metro or RRTS network. And it will be a complete sort of a symphony between the development which is going to take place and what we say the transit-led economic development. And all these things become very, very important because right now we have, I think, the data which I have got once I was sifting through the papers, etc. About 50%, 50 crores of the population out of total 140 crores in the country is urban population. By 2030, we expect that it is going to go up to, say, 60 crores. And in another 10 years or so, it is going to go up to 80 crores. So this rapid increase of urban population is taking place, and what is required in that is the transit development which is going to take place. The transit is going to drive the economic development in the area, and the economic development in the area further requires transit. So it's a circle which supports each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, sir. I hope that, I'm sorry I missed your opening remarks, but I hope that you could, within the opening remarks as well. So the first question to you, sir. Thank you so much. I'll move to Mr. Behera next. Sir, Kochi has the water metro and the metro rail, and we have, now you have the phase 2 line, the spur line, which is now connecting to the SEZ in Kakanad. Which I believe houses the largest IT park in Kerala and the second largest in India. Since sir just spoke about SEZs actually. So, and we also heard you speak yesterday in terms of how multiple modes in Kerala are being integrated, and multimodal integration, last mile connectivity is being sort of, there's a lot of innovation and it's being achieved. So could you share a little bit about particularly to economic and employment hubs, so the metro is going there, but then how is the last mile connectivity being planned, particularly to these large SEZs and your industrial centers? And would you know to what extent maybe public transport overall serves work commutes in Kochi? If you could respond to that first, sir.
Yeah, ma'am. I just wanted to actually say one or two things about your presentation. See, what you showed about Delhi or Bangalore will not actually be applicable to Kochi.
Okay, that's...
So I'll give you a small example. Yeah. There is now a big demand for the phase 3 line, which will be starting very shortly, to connect to Perambabur. Ma'am must be knowing about that particular place, which is fully, predominantly people are working in industrial units. They want that. It all depends on how much money you earn. So that is the particular thing. See, metro rail or water metro, whatever you say, is a product of economic development. And it induces development.
Yes.
It is like that, what sir said
Yes.
right now.
Yeah.
So what is happening is that in metro, everybody makes money except the metro company. That is the beautiful thing about metro. Because the contractor, the laborers, everybody, the vendors, everybody makes money. Lastly, when you go by the balance sheet, every year say how much of loss is there. That is the thing which is actually reported. But that we should not, because we have now come to a compromise saying that transit or transport is a service, so we should not, it's a sovereign function of the government to give the best transport to the people. So therefore, you should not come on balance sheet and loss and profit kind of things. Well, I just wanted to tell you what we had. SCZ, as you say, that actually is quite big. In Kochi, it's very long back. When I was police commissioner there, also it was there long years back. And they have a very good units, very unique units. Similarly, the smart city and actually the info park, they are quite big. And we are connecting to that. You know, the best part is that, I must say, because this side are women are sitting, I'll say, the empowerment part, I'll say. Kochi actually has 100% facility management of metro and water metro women. 100%. And we have 50% drivers in the metro, they are women. And this is actually working excellent. And we are the first people to officially appoint transgenders. And they are in executive functions. And that particular thing has definitely improved their condition. You take madam's study relating to the water metro. Water metro, what it did, it is actually, Kochi is surrounded by 10 islands. The islanders are, every day they come to the city and they go back. And now their position has improved quite a bit. Now what has happened is that those land which were not to be purchased by people from north, some of my friends also say, oh, zameen kuch mil jayega wahan. That kind of things have happened. So whether it is very near to the metro line or very near to the water metro stations, the land value has gone up. People are there to buy. And one other indicator I can tell you is that, ma'am, is that what is actually the non-fare bus revenue, we have a stupendous growth in 2 years. I was wondering that why it happened. And who are the people who are coming forward to do the advertisement? Those people who are very near to the line, metro line, they come. They say, pillar numbers 116 ke bagal mein. That is the kind of things they say. It gives me money, they also make money. Yeah. So what we did is that, as Kerala people, they are very fond of technology. So we thought that it is their metro. What they want, they will give you. So they wanted WhatsApp ticketing, they want Instagram, they want everything. So they give whatever they asked, where they have integration, digital wallet, they want to do this, that. Everything we did, both in water metro and metro. We have one card, you can travel with anything, anywhere. In auto, you can go in, the buses. So this is a kind of integration rather than actually doing only the physical integration by NMT by putting footpath or lights or parks, etc. But this is actually bringing happiness and money to these people. As sir has said very interestingly, he saw the advertisement. I actually gave that advertisement. That is the difference. There was a very famous hospital, ma'am must be knowing, very famous hospital for cancer and other treatment, very near to Cochin. It is called Rajagiri Hospital. People, their clientele are from abroad, and very expensive hospital, very good hospital. They came and told our actually system from the Alwa metro station, can you run a bus which we will charter and give you the money? So we have given that, and we have big hoardings. I have said, actually, I didn't spend the money. They spent the money, but I put the logo. So that is what is happening. So as I said, that everybody makes money. So economic development is happening when the metro or transit or thing. One philosophy is that a person on move only makes money. That is the particularly the thing. So you have to move to actually make money. So transit, whether it is RRTS or metro or water metro or any other thing, that will bring in development. That is what.
Right, sir. Thank you so much. And on a couple of points, I will get back to you after we hear from Mr. Rajiv Dhankar. The point that you made on metro doesn't make money and non-fare box revenues but still going up, I'll come back to on that point. Sir, Delhi NCT and beyond now has a 390 plus kilometer metro network. And now it's also part of the draft MPD proposals. I was one question that I had, and in fact, I'll follow it up with another question. So it has an extensive network, and subsequent phases are being planned. In Delhi, what is your sense of whether the current metro alignments, do they connect to and capture the existing economic and sort of major employment hubs? And I know the master plan also has talked about a TOD policy, very sort of focused policy, identifying a few nodes for TOD. Have any of these been envisaged, as designated as for industrial commercial development or innovation business districts? So both, like how does the current capture the job hubs, as well as are there plans to bring jobs closer, which is the more difficult thing to do in a city? So if you could respond to that, and then I have a follow-up questions.
Yeah. Thanks. Today, Delhi has got 396 kilometers of the running metro line. Nearly 100 more kilometers under construction, out of which 20 kilometers are ready. And we are in the planning to add 200 more kilometers within the Delhi. How come like a city which has got 400 kilometers, 100 kilometers more under construction, still is planning to add 200 more? Where? We have completed the main arteries, like main north, south, circular. Now, the aim is that there should be a metro station within the walking distance of every resident. For that, we need to now connect the stations and take the metro to the nearby areas every kilometer. And with that, we are developing the plan for adding 200 more kilometers within the Delhi, 700 more kilometers. It will be the second largest metro network in the world. Now, what is the aim? Why we are planning? We say we need to make, like our MD sir had said, walkable city. We need to make dense network so that people are able to, don't have to go to private vehicle, they should be able to take it. Secondly, we have been requesting the governments, Delhi government as well as the central government, to come up with the TOD policy to increase the allowable FARs in or near the metro stations, and permitting mixed use, so that residential, commercial, and workspace come together within the 500-meter radius of the metro station, so that the densification occurs. The people don't need to take the private vehicle to go there. So the space around the metro station becomes the center point, and all the space around it will provide the opportunity for living, for working, for playing, for shopping, and for education. And in that, we have taken an initiative of, I'll try to mention Rithala-Narela section. At present is a whole of the land is nearly vacant area. DDA owns it. When we were making the route, we sat with the DDA and developed the alignment in consultation with it, where are the educational hubs are coming, where the residential hub is coming, and where is their the Udyog Vihar, like industrial hub is coming. And let's connect them, and identified the stations, locations to have the TOD there, the densification occurs, so that the economic development in the, that is the northern western part of Delhi, the economic development happens there. That was easy for metro because it is a semi-brown field or semi-green field, brown-green field, what you call it. But the target comes in when we say we are working at the New Delhi or here where already people are there, and we want to increase the having a planned development. there the target comes in, the risk, the challenge comes in ki how to move the people who are living there and develop the very planned way of development. That is a challenge we are still working on it, sir, ma'am. But let me
yeah.
continue
Yeah.
one more thing. Like, there is no denying that the transit is the future. It has to be, urbanization is increasing, and there are two ways. Either we keep on going as the conventional way of urbanization. That means vast cities consuming large number of area, which necessitates people moving longer distances. Infrastructure cost will be high, cost of the road and network, though people will be taking up the cars. That's the one way of which we have been developing over the past 50, 70 years. Another way is have a planned development with the densification around the metro system so that the economic development happens. People are able to move to the workplace and the educational hubs in a very short span of time, walking or cycling. And if they have to go longer distance to meet their relatives and the open space, they use the metro system. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. No, absolutely, sir. Thank you so much. I mean, initially there has to be development-oriented transit because the development has, preceded transit. But continuing only with that model alone would be resource inefficient and very expensive on the public purse. So one has to do the opposite as well and, sort of then bring development and sort of jobs and population closer to transit. This was a question that I had actually for all transit agencies that, in Delhi, if you could share if there are examples where transit agency or government, like public held lands that are in strategic, well-connected locations, are they being, is there any thought process or planning, whether these are being leveraged to, sort of, we've heard of Kadkar Duma, but sort of TOD schemes and projects that can, bring jobs closer. Because Government of India now does have a plan for, like it has a, sort of asset monetization policy and push, and now the UCF and all that is also there. And what I've heard is that transit agencies, so far in India, cannot procure land for commercial or industrial development. So, sir, you already said that you're working with development agencies like DDA and other sort of government land holding agencies to sort of do this planning together. Ties in with your question on non-fare box revenues and how sort of other agencies like we've heard in Hong Kong and all that make it sustainable, because the transit agency itself develops these TOD projects, with all of these including public infrastructure, amenity and all that very close to metro stations. So my question was, do our transit agencies, because in Bangalore, I can sort of state that example, so far we've not been able, there are large land parcels that exist in economic sort of areas, where stations and depots have come. So the metro agency or, sort of the suburban rail agency own these land parcels. But so far they've not been able to leverage any of those land parcels for property development. So that was one question. And a tagged on question to that is that in Delhi, the regulations for redevelopment of existing industrial areas were notified way back in 2012. So some of these, like, older industrial areas, again, in Bangalore, I use that example because I'm familiar with that city. Older industrial areas are now gentrifying. So industries, always continue to sort of move further out, and then it turns into sort of either, service sector or commercial development or high-end residential development. But have you observed, because Delhi Metro has the longest sort of history, have you observed what are the kind of changes that you've seen in existing industrial areas? And also there's a need to sort of align SEZ and industrial area development regulations with, sometimes they are in conflict with TOD regulations. Because, when you try to retrofit, especially the NMT cut-throughs, the, security arrangements have to be different. So we are finding these challenges. So yeah, just my question was, are transit agencies able to, sort of can economic development and inclusive economic development and public infrastructure development be considered a social good to allow transit agencies to leverage their land parcels for this kind of development? And the second question was on just this, sort of plans and regulation alignment between SEZs and things like that, because those are in conflict. So,
Ma'am, answering to first question, we don't have the land parcels. So we can't leverage it out. We get the land only for the purpose of developing the stations, that's all. But yes, we do go to land owning agencies saying that we are bringing the metro line here. It will help you in increasing the land value. You'll be doing land value capture. Why don't you finance a part of my project? And they do finance. DDA for Rithala line gave me 1,000 crore rupees. We provided the land, developed the network here. This NBCC or the Ministry of Urban Development is doing major redevelopment of their central housing quarters schemes, RK Puram, and there are many areas. And when they're redeveloping it, they're sitting with us where all you can plan your metro network so that the people will have multi-story residential complexes who will have to go to there are the offices. Why not have a metro line taking these people to the offices and back? And we shall develop the commercial space along the main roads and the continuous green belt over the metro line. So the question you are asking, land owning agencies, metros have to sit together, work and plan their alignment so that both help each other. Thank you.
thank you so much, sir. Thanks a lot. I'll move to Professor Sanjay Gupta. Sir, you have extensive sort of research and technical expertise in the field of transport policy and planning. So in your view, if you could also sort of reflect on the discussion so far, what are the gaps and challenges in achieving this sort of integrated planning and implementation? You also have, sort of experience in urban freight. So I would say, in your view, how should cities go about it? And considering both employment and sort of urban freight logistic hubs for transit-enabled economic.
Thank you a lot. I think I'm learning a lot here. So very interesting. Let me put it, two things we need to be very clear. I think some of us who are hardcore transport plans, I can see Samir, Professor Swami. Whenever we plan a transit line, we are taking economic opportunities into account. Because वो modeling बनता ही वैसे है.
Destinations.
Yeah, we take employment into account.
Yeah.
Now that's a different matter that sometimes the master plan is not available. And that is where we assume a certain employment level to exist, maybe, and probably doesn't come on ground. That's a part of implementation. So one part of transit development philosophy is that we do take the potential of economic development in the area in which we are aligning the transit. The other part now is that once the transit comes in, obviously there is a land value capture potential. Now, I guided a PhD work for Delhi, and unfortunately, we didn't find LVC potential in Delhi. So there are a lot of other factors. So LVC, while it is being positive, there are a lot of factors of DCR, as Saraj just said, or the inter-institutional coordination. It doesn't happen. Maybe in Ahmedabad, probably. It also depends upon the climate of urban governance in the city where it is more receptive. I think there are flexibilities, but LVC is good to say, but it is very difficult to implement right now in the current system of our so to say, urban regulations. That fact we need to know.
Yeah.
Till the time we reach a tipping point. We can't reach Hong Kong. Hong Kong has developed because of the land constraint. Otherwise, probably Hong Kong also wouldn't have got into this LVC, which we cite as a rail plus property, best case example. The other point is, let's be very clear, and I'm not being cynical here. The urban planners were never trained to appreciate transport intervention. That is the starting point. So whenever we prepared master plan, I'm sure my colleague will agree here, they didn't had a domain transport planner in their team. So they never kind of dovetailed the impact of the transport, or so to say, establish an interrelationship between what the economic activity and transport would play around, And that is why we are I would put it, in a mess in Indian cities where we find a disconnect. And I do this subject of urban structure analysis, and just to say that most of a growth of population is actually towards middle and outer area, whereas most of a job growth is still in the core and the middle. It is not coming out because of economies of scale, because of disincentive, the person feels it's too far off, there is no transit connectivity. So this is the macro picture. This is a macro picture of all the Indian cities, including Delhi. We have done fantastic amount of research on this. There is this dichotomy, there is imbalance between the population and job. Now, transport, the incentive of RRTS, as rightly pointed out by him, and the metro, is now some little bit of hope of light that we can probably do some mid-course correction and check what is called the urban sprawl. Now, if one were to do this sprawl correction, and we always say compact development, mixed-use development kind of a concept, you have to have a supportive DCR. Now, I'm just listening to him that while the metro doesn't have the right to exploit the land value capture in the influence area of the station, but I'm happy that at least DDA is sitting with them. DDA is an empire by itself. It never used to sit with transport planners. I've been in a lot of committee, TOD chapter हम लोगों ने बनाया. मगर जब हम TOD बना रहे थे, draft कर रहे थे, तो I was telling the person that, well, TOD is already happening. By default, the high densification, the moment you announce a transit line, a lot of us have said, you announce a transit corridor, immediately the land value goes up. Because there is a speculation, it's a classical land use transport cycle. The moment you improve accessibility, it's bound to have it. Now, then you over invest also. You can see Delhi Agra Expressway, and then you find your real estate is not actually buoyant. So what I'm just trying to connect, that this is the reality in which we are. And I think regulations, to me, interinstitutional mechanism, giving more flexibility to transit operators. I think we need to have another discourse wherein how one can actually do that. And I thought in this team, we should have people from Development Authority. Let us listen from them that what constraint they have to kind of not allow this flexibility to transit operators. Because I think all of us, in my last 39 years, this is the best time of urban transport. And regional transport, ये कभी नहीं आया. ये कभी नहीं आया और ये आएगा नहीं. और ये it is like a missed opportunity. अगर हमने अभी नहीं करा तो ये निकल जाएगा हाथ से. Now, I am happy that he is now saying that now the transit expansion is happening towards probably, I would put it, sub-Aadil network. आप थोड़ा residential area के पास जा रहे हैं so that you can cut down the last mile need and people can start walking the way we walk in London, the way we walk in Paris. Paris metro is just about 500, 600 meters. You can just get a line. I think until as we reach that stage, we still are miles away from what we are. Now, a little bit about freight. Well, I'll dabble into it.
Yes.
We need to practice something called city logistics. So Delhi has had its first CLP plan. I was advising GIZ on that, and it has been approved by the government. But then let us see. There is a lot of difference between what we propose and what actually comes on the ground because of a lot of other compulsions. So right now, I'll just stop here and maybe give chances further.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So basically, I'll come to Professor Shivanand Swamy, and sir, Ahmedabad has 160 kilometers of BRTS and 60 kilometers of operational metro lines, pretty fast sort of construction, with phase 2 already covering and connecting Gift City and Gandhinagar. Ahmedabad is also like cutting edge when it comes to, your transit systems as well as land use transport integration and planning. And so I'd like to hear from your experience in Ahmedabad, and particularly the way, I again am responding to the sort of trends I see in Bangalore. When it comes to, and maybe that is just so, so there are market forces, political economy forces, that the larger economic and employment hubs are going to be, sort of outside where land is available. So, and then transit follows sort of many years later. But then the smaller land parcels are held by, sort of are like privately held, right? So MSMEs and all that. I mean, one phrase that I heard is that jobs will automatically come close to transit, and here we are focusing on sort of jobs because work commutes, are basically 50% of the trips in a city in most cities. So just from Ahmedabad's experiences, how has the city gone about this integrated planning? That's question number one. And yeah, I mean, we also know that, compact city TOD strategies are embedded in the master plan. You all have the LAP TPS, sort of mechanisms, and Ahmedabad has gone ahead and created like tons of, sort of LAP scheme, plans and schemes. So yeah, sort of follow-on question was how much of this is sort of notified, approved, and yeah, just we'd like to learn from Ahmedabad's experience and how it is going about this, as well as sort of, if it's conceiving catalytic projects, leveraging the Urban Challenge Fund. So yeah, just your experience from Ahmedabad.
Thank you. I'd like to make a few macro
Yeah.
perspective to begin with, and then specific to Ahmedabad.
Yes.
Before that, I'd like to react to Sanjay. Okay, when all the frustrations, what he's saying, we say Delhi is Delhi. Okay, and I think that says all of it. Okay, the number of governments, governance systems, and everything else.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, whatever persuasions one is doing, but then unlike Delhi, I think Gujarat is, in terms of governance systems, are much more evolved. There is a local government, there is a state government, and of course, the national government. Local governments are functioning and powerful. And I've heard many of our senior officers from Gujarat, urban development secretaries again, Saab knows about it. They say that Municipal Commissioner Ahmedabad is more powerful than the urban development secretary of the state in terms of the kind of executive powers one hold on the city itself, because city is a major determinant there. Yeah? Therefore, a lot of things happen. One, I think, while we talk about wider economic benefits, what you are mentioning, they are nowhere part and parcel of the economic evaluation of the projects. Investment decisions, in the decision-making perspective, you may actually take into consideration your planning part of it, but decision-making has no bearing on how well you have taken or not taken. I think that's one point I thought is very important. Number two, cities, like it or not, they are already sprawling. Now, compact is not going to be possible or feasible part of it there. You look at the top 20 cities, they're very clear. We just mapped last week. And one saw that they're all sprawling. There's no doubt about it. And the fact that Amrutkal,
Transit is also enabling some amount of
I'll come to that part of it. By 2047, if you're going to become a developed country, our incomes are going to become 3,000 to 12,000, and all the purchase power, and therefore, what you said, the cars and driverless, whatever else is going to happen. And therefore, the opportunity is now in the next 10 to 15 years. You want to build metro, don't build metro 20, 30, 40. Whatever is required, like say Bangalore, you probably need about 500 kilometers. Plan it out in the next 15 years in a phase-wise, build it. When you build a network, you will be able to achieve the kind of ridership which you're looking for. You will serve the city. Okay, I think that's an important point I thought one would like to make. Don't go to incremental one corridor and then go to all size class cities, which is also not necessary. All the big cities, probably once and for all, we need to do that part of it there. While we do that, like Saab said, metro alone is not going to serve the needs of a city. You need a bus. Maybe in cases you need water transport. You need something else, like you go to hill cities, you might want escalators and elevators and things of that kind. Different things, micro to macro. I think that's what is necessary there. As I said, sprawl is not going to happen. Compact is not going to happen. They're already spoiling. Maybe only way is our corridor approach. And metro or such high capacity systems will work well for corridor approach. And I think that seems to be the way forward for us to think ahead. We are almost like 2055, we will probably saturate. And we are in 2025, 30 years. Therefore, we may add about 30 to 40% of the additional population into each of these existing cities there. Therefore, we are going to build sizable urban areas in the future. And how we build is a question. And rather than just expanding the city, would it be possible to have some kind of a satellite towns, whatever one would like to call them,
Polycentric-
nodes, whatever.
polycentric
Yeah.
sort of,
Yeah. But then they're not polycentric. Urban area turning into polycentric is definitely one. Another one is going beyond urban areas. I think that's number two there. Therefore, Gujarat government recently announced 5 satellite towns. Gandhinagar and Sanand are, Kalol and Sanand are 2. And therefore, there are discussions right now, a hybrid kind of a thing where you don't just build metro or RRTS, a kind of a part RRTS and part metro, because closer to urban, you are almost developed area. These are the kind of discussions which are happening now, whether to go to RRTS or a suburban, would that be a good idea?
Basically forethought, like long-term.
Yes, all of that
planning,
is
yeah.
happening there. As you rightly pointed out, manufacturing within will not be benefited by high capacity lines because it's only morning, evening, and within the larger areas,
And they
there is
live
no
close
movement
by and
during the day. No,
often
inside.
it's in townships and,
GIDC
so, yeah.
estates, if you go to industrial development estates, there's nothing inside during the day. Okay, it's a very different kind of an environment. You need to take them closer, but not inside. I think that's the part of it. Ahmedabad, we have done 375 town planning schemes. That covers about 567 square kilometers area. Town planning schemes enables agriculture land fit for urban use. It takes away 40 to 50% of land for public purposes. And it also reserves about 15% land for sale. Therefore, you capture value there. And then additionally, about 5 to 10% for urban poor. And therefore, that is working very well in one city, that's Ahmedabad.
Yeah.
I think many cities are replicating now. At least all the metro cities with metro, they're all trying to build town planning scheme and LAP. And you talked about LAP, there are 19 of them now in Ahmedabad prepared. And they have actually by sale of FSI, city has got 1,081 crores in the past 5-6 years. That's a large sum of money. It will not get distributed to metro, that's a different thing altogether. Those are other issues, whether at all to give it to metro or not. While these people are sitting, I have to think.
That sharing arrangement has
Because
to be worked
there are a
out.
lot of issues on who will
Yeah.
develop water, drainage,
Yes.
sewerage, sanitation. I will, one last point.
Yeah.
A 500 meters, 800 meters, one needs to rethink on that within the city. Scarcity creates value. You are going to build 500 kilometers of metro in Bangalore. That would mean if you have 500 meters, then it's 500 square kilometers. You push it into the market. Will it create value? It will not create value. And therefore, Ahmedabad went ahead and did 200 meters on either side and not 500 meters. Okay, if need be, then we can always extend further because Ahmedabad looks at about 250, 300 kilometers of metro network plus BRT together. Okay, that probably I think is the last point I'm saying. Finally, if we don't integrate, okay, systems won't be feasible. We just did a model based on Asia metro cities. If you integrate, your ridership will go up by 25%, whatever, with and without integrating. That's a kind of level of difference. And if you have a public transport mode share in the city is 30%, 10 to 15% is what you will get in metro. And therefore, without that public transport culture, metros will not succeed. I think that's an important part which we need to look at it. Don't look at metro as only metro. Metro has to be looked at as its economic impacts, as other modes which are complementary. Who is feeder and who is feeding, that I don't know. Globally, cities, buses carry more people than the metro. Therefore, who is feeding whom is a different matter. Therefore, in Bangalore question, it's more important that your networks have to be integrated, fare has to be integrated, rather than looking for a third mode or a fourth mode. It will backfire at some day on the public transport itself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Since we have to wrap up in another 10 minutes, I'll move quickly to our next sort of panelist, Ms. Usha Rao. You've led several sort of strategic initiatives, and you also have an expertise in sort of resource efficiency and climate resilience related aspects. So my pointed question to you would be, what are the resource efficiency and climate resilience aspects that must be embedded into these projects, and any successful examples that you can share. And a quick sort of also point on, since you worked with multilateral banks and development agencies, how can funding and investments be synergized and leveraged to implement sort of lighthouse projects and schemes? Yeah. Because so far we've done a lot on planning. There's a lot of things that exist on paper. Now sort of getting it to on the ground.
Thank you so much. I think it was really interesting for me to hear everybody's perspective. In fact, as Professor Sanjay Gupta ji said, I mean, I'm also learning, and I've been learning always whenever I've come to UMI, because I'm not from the sector, and I think you would have gathered from my introduction that was said by Radha. So I have been mainly focusing on developing projects in this area for accessing climate finance or funds from development banks. So the question I think I was asked to intervene was on the resource efficiency. I think, again, I don't want to delve too much into it. I mean, you all understand in terms of how resource efficiencies have to be looked into, and in the conversations that we just heard also, I think a number of those aspects have come in terms of the land use and how to optimize the land. I mean, broadly, I just want to touch upon when it comes to all this urban transport projects, and especially when we talk about TOD. TOD itself is a very resource conscious decision. I mean, so I think we all know that, because resources are limited, we are really trying to maximize that. So when we look at the TOD aspect, again, as you said, as a climate action or a climate solution, there are different elements to it. First is design and construction, then you have the energy systems, you have waste and water systems, siting and design, then operations, social resilience, and I think that was also brought up here. And I just learned about the governance resilience as well. As Professor Swami was telling, I think we also have to consider that element also in our screening of, various proposals. I just want to cite one example of DMRC, which actually did very early on in terms of, from the mitigation point of view, from the carbon mitigation point of view, they have the what they call as carbon reduction plan, and they always receive the carbon neutrality certificate also, apparently. So I think that's one example where we clearly see that resources have been optimized to actually reduce the emissions. And I think that is the same thing which we have to look into all other elements, whether it's buildings, whether it's water, whether it is, other areas. So I think in Nagpur Metro, I remember there was a lot of prefabrication emphasis and so on, and there were also quite a number of other elements of cost reduction. Of course, regenerative braking is now given in terms of energy efficiency. So I think there are technological advancements that is happening, and I think it's very important to really map those, considering, as even from the Kochi, what Sir said, that every city has a different context. So I think we really need to understand what are the technological parameters that needs to be kept in when we talk about resource efficiency. So I think that mapping for every city, and while planning and while screening the proposals, especially when we talk about expansion, I think this question on whether it is resource efficient, whether expanding metro is resource efficient or not is a question that needs to be asked. Since time is short, I'll just switch to the funding aspect of it. We know that TOD has a lot of components, and most of the funding agencies, they do look at very sectorally. So sometimes it is very difficult to find, something unless until if TOD is looked into as an adaptation project, then we could just go to the Green Climate Fund and propose it. But there again, the grants are limited only to the adaptation component. So I think a layered approach of funding needs to be looked at. So I think from the design stage, what elements have to be funded by which source, I think that needs to be emphasized. I'll stop here. I'm more than happy to have the conversation parallelly later on. But I think there are a lot of funding possibilities, whether it's ADB, EIB, now AIB is coming in. And I think all of them do have this appetite for financing the TOD, but then it's about the components and how well it is packaged for funding.
Thank you, ma'am, so much for keeping it concise and also raising important complementary points to this discussion. And finally, I'll come to Mr. Rahul Yadav. Sir, DMRC has now recently introduced an urban freight initiative that utilizes the metro network for sustainable and efficient intra-city e-commerce goods movement. This sounds very interesting, and if you could please share a little bit more about this initiative, um, if it's been implemented and what the outcomes are so far. Also, if you could highlight the learnings for how other cities can adapt and adopt this.
Respected Chair.
Sorry, and there are some slides.
It's okay, I think because of the paucity of the time, we'll skip the slides.
Okay.
I will just have
Yeah.
respected Chair, esteemed dignitaries and the co-panelists here. Very good afternoon. So I will just cut it short. In the previous UMI, in the 17th UMI, there was a roundtable session number 3, which had a discussion about urban freight. The idea was, what role can metros play in decongesting cities from the point of view of freight, and can metros be used to assist in movement of freight? So when you talk about urban freight, broadly it is movement of goods within the cities. But you have to see it in a very different perspective. Urban freight is where the national supply chain actually meets city logistics. And if you look look from the point of view of city logistics, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, they in themselves are equivalent to several European countries. So what is city logistics in Delhi NCR is actually national logistics in some of the European countries. We took a cue from that, and the focus was that utilizing metros. Now metros all metros struggle with this because we have this peak hour and off-peak hour movement. And during the peak hours where capacities are running excess of 100%, but during the non-peak hours, it somehow varies between 17 to 50%. So the idea was, can we use it from the point of view of e-commerce? We focused on e-commerce for 2 reasons. One, that e-commerce sector in itself is booming. On an average, India sees around 3 billion parcels annually. And the industry in itself is poised to grow to around $350 billion by the end of 2030. The congestion that we are currently having, I mean, urban freight accounts for around 10 to 15% of vehicular movement in the city, much more from the point of view of emissions. So that is a big area that needs to be addressed. And the second reason was safety and packaging. When you're talking about e-commerce, it comes with somehow standardized packaging in different parcel segments. Metros are very particular, and they should be for the safety and the aesthetics of the environment. That is addressed to a good extent when we are actually moving e-commerce, not the bulk consignment. So Delhi Metro started this journey. We had a brief, extensive market research. The thing is that e-commerce in itself is a black hole. We think that Amazon, Flipkart, Delivery, Blinkit, Zeptos are there. But when you go inside, they have a very different model. While Blue Dart capitalizes on the movement of shipments and is a market leader in that, Amazon and Flipkart have a very different model. So e-commerce in itself is an area, and because of the cutthroat competition between them, the market, the data that is available is very less. We focused on that, and then we went to hit and look after that. What are the international, experiences there? We are not alone, and
Sir, if you could wrap up in about 2 minutes.
yeah, just so. So Delhi, when it started, we had 3 kind of models. One was that we wanted to run in the off-peak hours, wherein one coach was being used to move e-commerce consignments. We're ensuring all safety checks, and post-scanning the material was being used. Then in another meeting, Honorable Minister said that you have to do something about the workers and the merchants that are actually in southern and Chandni Chowk area. We then came up with the model of a customized trolley, which is unique to Delhi Metro, and that had access to move across lines. Lastly, that is being done in areas like Madrid and China, that utilizing the depots for movement of cargoes. So depots are being used as kind of a siding, wherein you can actually move around 60 to 70 tons. We are in the trial phase. We will be moving very shortly with that. So these are some broad areas, and these can be replicated by, I think, Bangalore, Hyderabad itself, but each of the cities have to look at its own customized solution because the market there is very different. I will just stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think Bangalore would definitely be interested in this for sure. I'll just give the last word to Professor Sanjay Gupta to sort of close. Yeah, and sorry, before I close, it's a pleasure and honor to actually have Miss Aditi Chaudhary. She's the Commissioner Municipal Commissioner of Asansol Municipal Corporation. And yeah, she wanted to I'm so glad that you could participate in this. And perhaps, Gupta sir, if you don't mind, I will have her, I'll give her the last word, because yeah, she would like, if you had any questions, ma'am. So she wanted to listen into the discussion, and I thought I'll give her time to pose a question.
Okay. So we know we have paucity of time, so I will not throw any more questions. I will just sum up. So actually, this all of this discussion was, about policy, and we working in the field. We are also looking into the implementation part of it, execution part of it, and we are also grappling with a lot of realistic problems like people's resistance, political will, if it is in favor or in resistance, a lot of other things. Coordination between different agencies. So I'm very glad that I am able to hear that what all can be implemented, where it all can go. So it will help us in, pushing some projects from our end for Asansol Municipal Corporation to the State Transport Department. So we'll be doing that. And thanks to all the esteemed panelists here. And I'm very happy to be part of this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That was perfect closing. I hope this exchange between cities was sort of rich and insightful learning, cross-pollinating. Thank you very much to everybody and our panelists again once more. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.